Theros Beyond Death spoilers have started in earnest. No leaks this time, these are straight from the mothership. We have had a lot of cool things shown off that we will get to in future videos, but something in particular caught Jake's eye today and we wanted to talk about it.
It starts right now. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I am Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We've got to jump in and talk about some early Pioneer implications of the Theros Beyond Death cards we've seen so far. But first, if this is your first time here and you want to stay up to the minute on the latest decks and strategy for Pioneer, Historic, Commander, Standard, and Brawl, you want to talk about MTG Finance, news, and specs, or you just want to watch us open some booster packs, make sure you hit that subscribe button before you leave. Jake, get us into this, man. Theros Beyond Death. What did you notice?
Well, here's the thing. When a new set comes out, I always look at what cards I believe I can spec or what I think is going to affect the deck and make it better or more consistent. And what we saw today, the card that I really want to talk about is Setessan Champion.
Yep. I opened up Staggering Insight first.
No, that's
but
fine. That's fine.
Setessan Champion. We'll pretend like that went perfectly.
So it has Constellation, which I kind of feel like a nub. I don't even know what that means. But what I do care about is the rest of the card.
Constellation has to do on ETBs of enchantments. That's a keyword, but they're not ever going to leave it, I think, as a solo keyword because it does take a little explanation. But whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, comma, the rest of the thing happens. That's what Constellation is.
Gotcha. So put a 1/1 counter on this card and then draw a card. So what card does this remind me of? It reminds me of our boy Sram, Senior Edificer, but I feel like it is better. While Sram is more versatile, being able to draw off the cast, vehicles, equipment, or auras, this card specifically says auras. So in a deck like Bogles, so let's just say it like it is, this is a Boggle deck. That is in Pioneer. There's a Selesnya Aura Hexproof deck that runs Glade Cover Scout, SRAM Senior Edificer, and the 2/1 Reach. I forget what the card is called, but it's a 2/1 Hexproof Reach. Essentially, all you do is you Voltron up a little Hexproof guy and send it on through, and you draw a bunch of cards. It's a lot of velocity. It's a pretty non-interactive linear deck. It just goes. It is very quick. It's quick games, which appeals to a lot of players. And this is a deck in Pioneer that has really started to take off, and I think it just got a lot better. I know I said a lot of words there, but yeah, that's just where I'm at, and so we're making a video about it.
No, I see where you're coming from. I think that there's something notable too about Setessan Champion that you probably noticed but may not be immediately an eye catch. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, an enchantment, it doesn't have to target Setessan. It doesn't have to target any of your things. It doesn't have to be an aura, which is a difference between it and SRAM. So you have something like Trapped in the Tower from Eldraine. That is a removal enchantment. I'm sure we're going to get more removal enchantments. I remember back original Zendikar block, Journey to Nowhere, was a very widely played card. And that's the kind of card that would play so beautifully with Setessan Champion. Because you're taking the blocking threat off the battlefield, Setessan Champion gets bigger and replaces that card in your hand.
Yeah. That's a really important thing that I wasn't thinking about. SRAM does specifically say auras. This card says enchantments.
Yeah, any enchantment.
So while the main deck of auras is going to be a very non-linear, there's not going to be a lot of removal. As soon as you go to the sideboard, I imagine there's going to be a bunch of enchantment removal. That way it plays off of whether it's an aura or not. If it needs to be something more sticky, something like Conclave of the Tribunal or any type of effect like that that's just going to hit any permanent, then your Setessan Champion is there. So let's talk about why this is important for these decks, and it's because of redundancy.
Let's get to the other card that we haven't even covered, and that's Staggering Insight. We've got a card that was like Curious Obsession, which we saw took down a mythic championship in a build that wasn't really Bogles. It was like get one unblockable and or avoidance flying creature with Curious Obsession on it, and then just run a huge suite of counter spells to protect that one creature, and then back it up with a Tempest Gen, I think it was, that can grow every time you play an island. Okay, Staggering Insight is essentially that card plus 1 white so that it gets lifelink as well.
Yeah, dude. This is another amazing aura. I think that it's just excellent, and it's redundancy. It's another Curious Obsession.
Yeah.
So auras in Pioneer, just first impressions from these Theros Beyond Death cards. I really do feel like this deck is going to be even more on people's radar. People are going to be buying up the staples from these decks. So if you're interested in playing auras and you've been on the fence, I think now is the time to buy in, get into it. It's a very fair deck. It's not something that's absolutely insane, so I don't think it's going to get banned. There's nothing really to ban in it, but it has a lot of answers. One card that comes to mind for me is Heroic Intervention. For 1 green and 1 other permanents you control, gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. That's a very reasonable sideboard card to protect your creature once it's all Voltroned up. Say they go to do a board wipe to try to wipe it. That's the only thing that they've got. And now for 2 mana, you're giving it indestructible. So I think there's a lot of synergy here. It's already a deck that is on people's radar. It's already a deck that's putting up 5-0s in modern leagues or Pioneer leagues on MTGO. So it's good, man. These are really important additions. I think that the 2-1 Reach guy, the 2-1 Hexproof Reach, is going to get cut for Setessan just for that additional draw, that additional...
It pushes Setessan into... No, I know where you were going. It pushes Setessan... The card itself pushes the deck into a more mid-rangey feel, whereas the entire strategy of Bogles right now, in its current form, which does not run blue, by the way, it's a Selesnya deck. It goes all in on that one creature, maybe a second creature, and if it can get continuously blocked or they can make you sacrifice it, you're pretty much SOL. With cards like Setessan Champion, you're replacing the cards in your hand, and the creature is getting bigger and bigger naturally, not to even think about whatever kind of auras that you may put on that, even though that's probably not your best target for the auras. You want those to go on the hexproof, but Champion gives you, number 1, something to sacrifice, and number 2, something to refill your hand and cantrip those auras every time you play one. I think with these 2 cards, you've got 2 competing thoughts happening. Right now, the Bogles deck is Selesnya, and it doesn't run blue. So Staggering Insight to me is like another copy, it's redundancy of Curious Obsession. So maybe that deck becomes like the Curious Obsession deck that took down that Mythic Championship, but you splash white into it, cut out Tempest Gen, and run some other things, more control-y things. Now, with, like we said, with Setessan Champion, you've got a card that protects your Boggler from sacrifice, is cantripping cards into your hand. Does the Auras deck, the Boggle deck, currently want to splash blue for cards like Curious Obsession, for cards like Staggering Insight? I don't know. It hasn't yet. Curious Obsession is good, but they haven't chosen to run it yet. But it could just be because they don't have the redundancy of a second version of that. Maybe 8 copies of Curious Obsession plus, a white mana is what that kind of deck needs to move into a Bant feel instead of just staying at Selesnya. Or maybe we've got 2 separate decks. One's going to be Staggering Insight Control. One is going to be Selesnya Bogles with Setessan Champion as a beater / sacrifice protection.
Yeah, people are going to be tinkering. I definitely see the merit in there may be 2 decks here, but also the fact that Staggering Insight offers lifelink is a big thing. So now you can feel fine about jamming your deck filled with hallowed fountains and temple gardens and breeding pools and use all of the stuff that's going to drain your life that you want, because as soon as you get one Staggering Insight on your Boggle, you're just going to gain all of that life right back. And that's one of the things that modern Bogles is known for is the lifelink. Once your Boggle has Daybreak Coronet on it, and it has Vigilance and lifelink, and it is just way out of range. It's like once it's swung once, you're just like, all right, this game is pretty much fallen from my fingertips. It's probably time to scoop it up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got Theros Beyond Death spoilers going, I guess, for the next month or so until that set comes out. We are super excited to continue talking about it. This is just kind of our first impression of a very interesting card that we saw might have some implication on Pioneer.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff, if you are interested in Pioneer, this is one of the things that has us really interested. This is a new, important format. It is a more accessible format because it is cheaper than Modern and Legacy, but it is also eternal. So people that have put time and money into building collections, they feel like their cards still have value even after rotation. And so Pioneer is going to be one of those things that we're focusing on a lot. If you are interested in Pioneer, please consider subscribing, because these are the kind of videos that you could expect.
He's absolutely right. And if you want to support us further past that, we've got a Patreon link is down in the description below. And if you want to hang out with us, we stream most Tuesday and Thursday evenings over on Twitch. I am tapped out. Theros Beyond Death has us pumped. We are super excited. We'll catch you later.
See you on the flippity. See you later, Warehouse.